we're so excited to see you. Welcome. So I'm going to clap to you. Clap to yourself. Look at your neighbor. Say yeah. We get to go backpacking together.
Yeah.
We get to maybe evacuate a campus.
No. Too soon.
Maybe too soon. Maybe too soon. Okay, but the joy, I think, of residence life is that you have an opportunity, I think, to get to meet people that you've never got to meet before. Additionally, you get to bond with a mentor. You get to bond with your team. And I love this time because it's like our first opportunity to really connect and to really begin to talk about what's the good work of residence life. We're really thrilled to have you be a part of this team. We recognize that everybody in residence life is in the room right now. We do have some people abroad. So shout out to the video camera that I hope is recording. I don't know, is it D? Thank you. Hey abroad people. So can everybody just say hello abroad people? Hi. Right, we see you. We see you. Okay, so on that note, this is the crew that's here for spring training. A couple of logistics before we get into some of the content piece of our training. You have very important paperwork, and I told you I will mock you publicly if you didn't turn it in today. So if you need some confession, we will take a break, a brief little break, and you can come confess, and maybe I'll hug you and forgive you. But I really need your imprint medical form. And not only do I need it, but our lovely assistant director, Dan Taylor, in the back. Who's in charge of planning the logistics of imprint or backpacking trip really needs that form so we make sure that you live, okay? So, if you can take your imprint medical form and you can pass it to the left, I'm going to ask Liz to collect. Oh yeah. To your right. Right.
One hop this time.
Yes. Just in case it'd be helpful. It's like, oh, they changed the wedding again. I'm on. Welcome. Just take what you already took in the summer. For your long All right, so another reminder. There's another thing that was due today. Somebody know what it is?
The form.
That's right. That's right. I look forward to voicing who your doppelgangers are going to be and your superpowers. Does anybody have any interesting superpowers they'd like to reveal to the group?
That we have currently?
Yeah. Matthew, start us off. Yeah. Mine is past. Yeah, in the past also counts.
Oh.
Do you have any superpowers?
No, unfortunately not.
Mine is sass. I'm very sassy. So that's my superpower. I just arm people with my sassiness. So many of you will have superpowers. I look forward to finding. Eden shares that talent as well. The Queen of Sass over there. So, all right. I look forward to reading those forms. So my hope is that you did them because we begin to compile that information so that over the summer, the RDs can have that information and they can begin prepping for RA training so that when you return in August, we have everything we need to know, such as food allergies, how to contact you in the summer, what are some of your favorite snacks, things that make you fearful with imprint, so that we can be supportive, okay? So please make sure that you fill that out. If not, I will be emailing you, and I will again be stalking you on this campus and saying fill out your form, okay? So those are a few things, those are a few reminders. All right, now everybody has a notebook. All right, so the notebook is fantastic. So, this is a gift for you. This is a labor of love. All right? I know, doesn't it feel so great? So, all right, here's a couple things. The front is important. I'll talk about that in just a little bit. If you flip this sucker around, it's got all the things that I would say you need to know. I would encourage you to memorize your mission statement. So, returning RAs, does anybody know the mission statement? Oh, James, forgot. You do know the mission statement. You want to stand up and say it, please? Yeah, James!
I might need a cue. Our mission is to contribute to the educational mission of the college by cultivating a diverse and transformative community of Christ-centered apprenticeship where students can grow in their capacity to live, love, and learn.
Everybody. guys, next year, if you can do that while like singing or do a little dance to
Okay.
it, we're gonna step it up next year because you're second year, so good job, sir. All right, the mission statement is important. The thing about Residence Life is we are mission driven, and so there will be several opportunities throughout the year where I will say, who knows the mission statement, and I will bribe you with a gift certificate to Starbucks or Blenders, and if you're bougie like me, Handlebar, okay? So start memorizing it. 'Cause
I've got a
it's
lot of
really,
money.
really important. He's cashed. James is really cashed up this year, so take us up on that offer and make sure that you memorize that. Other things are dates to remember. Just so that you know, I know a lot of you may live abroad or you may live in a different state, and so you may be trying to coordinate your flights. Please reference these dates because we really do expect that you would stay later to assist in closing down the residence halls or securing the safety of the residence hall in times of break, okay? So just make a note of that. And then here's are all the fantastic, lovely digits to know. And you guys are so lucky that you guys get my cell phone, all right? Don't like broadcast that, don't put that on Instagram or Twitter, all right? Because I like my cell phone to not have 120 different text messages, okay? But as RAs and as staff, it's an opportunity for you if there's really something that you need, if there's an emergency or you're really, you know, in times, especially this year with the evacuations, I think it was helpful for RAs to have my cell, just to say, hey Shannon, I have a few questions, or I just want you to be aware of this. And so that's for you guys as a gift. You can also send me funny gifts, and that's okay. Alyssa Wright has sent me a lot this year, so I welcome those because I love to chuckle. All right, things to note about the notebook. All right, if you open the contents of it, beautiful, right? I know. All right, so there's this awesome poem from Wendell Berry. In this poem, I think it's a really great reflection about our hope as we enter into the unknown. And print really is designed to kind of, I think, allow us to reflect and think about, in so much of leadership, we have no idea what our year is going to look like. If you had asked me my first year as the Director of Residence Life that I would be assisting in 2 evacuations and 3 safe plans, I would have laughed. No, it happened. So, as you know, and I think in many ways, that's so much of the unknown parts of leadership. So what does it mean to enter into the wilderness? What does it mean to enter into things where you're reliant on God, you're reliant on each other, where I'm relying upon my team and you guys as we try to lead, serve, and educate the students on this campus. So it's a good poem, meditate, reflect, snap your fingers. All right, flip the page. I also wrote all of you a lovely little note. You're loved. Okay, keep going. There's other tabs in here. So our encouragement is that you would read this notebook this summer, okay? Get familiar with it because it has lots of resources and tips for you to be successful in your position, all right? So I just want to emphasize, read your notebook. Secondly, you will need this for RA training, so make sure that when you return, you bring this bad boy back because we're going to add handouts, we're going to add resources. RDs usually use these in their staff meetings so that you can save your agendas. It's designed to be a tool that is helpful for you and designed to support you in your work, all right? So even though I accidentally dropped, I think, Kelly Evans' notebook, my bad, it's important, all right? Treat it with love and kindness, all right? So the aspect of being an RA, if you're living with your residents, you're leading with your residents. If you're an RA, you have the good work of loving. And as for us, we would say, you're going to be a servant then. In many ways, Christ came to this world, right? As a servant, died to himself so that we may have life. And Christ in his mission commissions us to be that love and that love in action. So we have an opportunity in this position to not only be leaders, but to also serve. And that's going to require a whole lot of things, exactly how Lima said. It's going to be guiding people to resources, and sometimes those are really hard conversations. In love, confronting, or in love, picking up the trash when you notice that your section isn't picking up the trash or doing the dishes. Sometimes love requires sacrifice of time, energy, and effort. And so in many ways when you're an RA, you're not only leading, but you're also serving. The third, learn. Anybody want to take a guess what that means for an RA? Kayla?
Promoting growth in education.
Yeah, that's exactly it. The learning aspect for you when you think about the mission is that you guys are educators. Now, are you going to be, Professor Connect, awesome Holly Beers? One day. We all strive. you are responsible for educating in many ways as RAs. We're educating in what it means to live together, how to confront, how to be healthy. There's so much that we will ask as you serve in this position to say, how are we educating our students in our hall? And some of that's going to be personal and interpersonal, and some of it may be more concrete when we're working on initiatives about what does it mean to drink in a healthy manner? What does it mean to cope well? The RDs in many ways will serve as experts in that, but we also see you guys as educators in the hall. You're our hands and feet. You're helping us promote the good work of education. So when you think about the mission and you're praying about what it means to be an RA, or if somebody asks you, what in the world are you doing as an RA? Simple. I live, love, and learn. And in that, I lead, I serve, and I educate. It's the easiest way for you to respond about what we expect of you and what we hope next year will look like for you. So know your notebook, know your mission like James, and if you want to dance next year, I may throw in an extra gift certificate for you. And if you can laugh. You're all smirking at me, you're like, okay, so know your notebook. All right, so with that, we're going to switch to the fun part called Traditions and Legacy in Residence Hall. It's going to be a little interactive. I'm going to talk a little bit about what traditions are and legacy and our hopes and what that means. We're going to have an opportunity to hear from some esteemed panel members. I've invited Melissa Lima, who, as you guys know, she's finishing her last semester with us. I've also invited Kayla Perry and Alyssa Wright in the back, who, as they prepare for graduation and have also served 2 years in residence life, will also be able to serve on that panel and talk a little bit about traditions, legacy, and even just offer maybe encouragement to you. We'll also break you guys up in small groups, and you'll have a chance to talk from one another, because we'd love to hear from you. What are traditions and legacies that you look forward to maintaining? And maybe what are things or thoughts that you have individually for your own section? The goal of why we want to start in our training with this conversation is we want to offer a primer for you that when you come back and you've had the summer to reflect on that, you have maybe some more concrete ways of what you want to do in terms of residence life work. So that's the goal. The second half of our training then will be devoted to preparing you for Imprint, our backpacking trip, which is the very first thing that we do when we return in August. Okay, so that's our time and our gathering. All right, residence life. All right, residence life has experienced a lot of change before. All right, so the residence life that many of you guys know isn't always the residence life that others in the past knew, or future people will be a part of in terms of residence life. So for any of you out there, are there any things that you know that has changed, whether it's residence life or on this campus? Anything that's changed?
The divisions of like different grade levels in dorms.
Yep. So this is our first year of a mixed class hall. So Paige, Clark, right, became integrated with first years and sophomores. And Emerson, we said, hey, see you later, juniors and seniors. We're going to make that a first year, sophomore year hall. Yeah, that's a significant change. Yeah. Did you guys know at one point Page Hall was all women? And at one point VK was all men. So a lot of times when I listen to students talk about, what are you doing? Page Hall is freshmen. I'm like, it was also all women. I can always go back to that. I'm happy to kick out all the men, you know? But when you think about it, right, it's like in context of change, right? At one point, Paige was all women. VK, for a certain period, wasn't even a building. They had little tiny, like, I forget the name, Quonset huts that we inherited from the military. Yep. And we set them up in rows with cots. Good. Welcome to Westmont College, Camp Westmont, I'm telling you right now. So, you know, you think about change, and then you look at VK and you think, oh, that's a change. Yeah, so that's exactly it, mixed class hall. What are other things that you feel like in your time as a student or things that you've heard about?
The GLC is now a thing.
Can we just clap to that? The GLC is a new residence hall. That's new for us this year as well. Gosh, I think about the first time we heard about this new residence hall was like 5 years ago. And then we like keep working on it, and now it's like, oh, it's a thing. It's like a real thing. It's an awesome building too. It doesn't mean that it hasn't been stretching in some ways, right? With facilities and the work that it's needed to get that building on board. But there's also some really great things that we've seen come out of that building already, with good education and I think future plans with what that can mean for a lot of our students that are going to live in the GLC as seniors, and as well as launching them forward, hopefully beyond Westmont into not just successful careers, but I think in opportunities that they can really truly be global leaders in this world. So when I think about the GLC and we think, wow, we didn't have a new residence, we didn't have a new residence hall. The last residence hall on campus was, you guys know? That was built? Emerson Hall. New dorm. Emerson Hall didn't have a name for like, I think 10 years. Yeah, if not more. So everybody called it two names. New dorm for the longest time. And I believe it was called, was it the big? Everest. Yeah, it's called Everest because, and you use the Emerson RAs in here. You're gonna have great legs. You gotta come on. You gotta like, that's like imprint ready right there. Just walk that like several times. You'll be fine on imprint. So in terms of change, in terms of traditions, right? That's one aspect. What else have you guys seen?
Change over in RDs, new positions.
That's right. That's right. So in my time, every year, we set the exception of 1 year. So I've been at the college for 8. We've had 1 year where we did not hire a new RD. So even in our staff, there's change in this position. Not only that, we have new RAs every year, with the exception of maybe, this year we have 3. Some years we have 5. So every year even, our staff may change, which I do think adds sometimes different elements to different residence life experiences on campus because there's new leadership. That's a good point. Mm-hmm. Anything else?
CLCs.
Shout out to the CLCs, yeah. That's completely new, right? For us, at least. I would say at other schools, there's lots of community councils, right? So some people are like, why are you trying to develop this community council thing? Because I'm like, it's relevant, all right? Back off, okay? Because it makes actually residence life a way that we create a community where we all have ownership, and it's not just the RAs. The community life councils are designed to allow us to have shared leadership, an opportunity where everyone can feel like they have a role in shaping the community. And so they're designed to add extra leadership for specific areas. And this year, in our residence life stuff, we had 10 CLC members that were hired to be RAs. So that's 25% of our staff had an opportunity to serve on a community life council, and now has an opportunity to be a part of the good work of residence life, and hopefully encourage and support others who will be on the CLC next year. Other things that I think are really funny. Armington used to have a radio station. I want to bring that back. I think that'd be hilarious. Just put it out there. The rules have changed. I was trying to find some information about it, but I can't remember like open hours. Like, I think about like for me, when I came from Lee, my open hours was like 4 p.m. to 10 p.m. And then I came here and I was like, say what? Like they get to hang out how long? That sounds like freedom, Like, that's amazing. But even at Westmont, that rule, those conversations took time and development and growth. They're evolving. Another part of transition, right, is when Clark M is part of it. The reason why a lot of the new facility management has been happening in Clark is because the T fire that happened 10 or 11 years ago, Clark M was one of the buildings that burned down. And so it forced the campus to kind of change and rethink our work in Clark Hall so that every year we can kind of focus on a section and try to modify it. That wasn't the original plan, but when you lose a complete building, right, it forces some transition, forces some growth. Imprint is a long-standing tradition, but it didn't always exist. Actually, all the residence life staffs used to have their own individual staff retreats, and nobody knew each other. Like, you're like, oh, hey, Anna. Cool. Good luck. But now, in many ways, we get to start our year by really understanding that we are one group. We are united. And that began because we developed a tradition way back with Stu Cleek, who served as the associate dean, whose feet that I get to, like, in terms of the shoes he's left, the legacy he's left, I get to step into this role. And I've inherited all of that change, all of that tradition, all of that legacy. And I'm very grateful for that. I inherited an incredibly strong RD team, an incredible program called Imprint. I developed, for me, working with Stu, the opportunity to see us change our student conduct process. So you don't just get community service hours, where we actually talk to students and say, tell me a little bit about your experience and how we can come alongside you and help you grow. I inherited a wonderful legacy. And I think when we talk about traditions, it is important to know that for all of you in this room, you are inheritors of a long-standing tradition. And that's the humility of how we would like all of our RAs to begin their work. For me, I'm acutely aware that I am very blessed to have inherited the good work of others. Now, that doesn't mean that as I step into Stu's shoes, which I'll describe as Birkenstocks. You know, when you have Birkenstocks, they conform to your feet, right? If you ever step into somebody else's Birkenstocks, you're like, what? That's it's a little odd, right? I try to like step into my husband's Birkenstocks sometimes, and I'm like, yeah, this is not going to work. Because they're conformed to his feet, and his feet are like huge. But I think in many ways, right, I'm having to step into it. I'm having to get familiar with it. I'm having to get to know kind of what I'm stepping into. But at the same token, eventually that shoe's going to need to conform to my feet. And I'm going to be able to add my flavor. I'm going to add my tradition. I'm going to be able to write my story of legacy and my tradition. And eventually, when the time comes, in the same way that Lima is preparing to do that right now in Armington, you write your story, you write your legacy, and you have an opportunity to give that to somebody else. So in residence life, that's the leadership principle we want you to kind of think through for this summer. We will continue to change. We will have moments where we're going to continue to reevaluate things. I think if we don't change, we will just die. I think when we think about living, we're always in a state of change. And so I think we remain stagnant when we're not really evaluating and thinking through ways that we can continue to honor the legacy and the good work of others, while at the same token continue to refine and improve it, right? So our hope is that you will play a role, that you continue to refine our good work, that you get to bring your diverse story, your diverse perspective, and that you get to offer a shaping into residence life, so that next April, when I'm talking to the new group of RAs, I can say, man, you've inherited a legacy that all of you played a role in. And that's exciting for me. And I think we will change. We're going to continue to modify the community life councils. We want to make that stronger, and we need your help with that. Because we really believe that it's a success when our RAs work with the CLC members to educate on spiritual formation, or when we have our intercultural peer mentors to talk about what is privilege and how do we create safe and hospitable spaces for all experiences to be welcomed in our residence halls. What does it mean to work with our global liaisons and to support students who come from abroad, right? We have so many great opportunities with the CL, so that's one goal. I would also say we hope to change more because I'm new. This will be my second year as a director. And I'm still going to be changing in how I want to serve my RD team. And I'm evaluating, how can I better serve them? How can I continue to empower them? Because they're amazing. I mean, really, we have amazing RDs. My team is the pride of my heart. But I know that it's going to require me consistently evaluating how I can change to continue to empower, support, and advocate the good work that they do. I think in residence life, too, we have a lot of work to do with mixed class halls, specifically in Page Hall. And that's not because of any of the good work that Thomas and his team haven't done. Because Page Hall, y'all, you know, right? We've got to do a culture change. We have to make some shifts of perspectives on this campus about how we associate Page Hall. And that's not just Thomas and his team's work, that's all of our work. So with that being said, I want you to just kind of think about this, but what RAs will bring to residence life. So overall, when it talks about traditions and legacy, there's a couple of things I want to point out, okay? First of all, just so that you guys know, talking about change, I already announced this to the Armington RAs, but I do want to introduce you to our new RD. Right. So Lima will have a chance to kind of talk about what she's looking forward to passing on to Tim, but we did hire the new Armington RD, Mr. Tim Miller, He's receiving his MA in spiritual formation from Wheaton. And he does rock a cool bow tie, not gonna lie. Okay, so just to, throw that out there, that's part of our change. But when we talk traditions, I think one thing that if I was taking notes, I would write the following. We are creating traditions and legacy in the residence halls. All right, that's something that we are committed to doing. But when I say traditions and legacy, I really want to make it clear that it is tradition and legacy that is hospitable and inclusive. There are a lot of traditions that are not always hospitable and not always inclusive. Exhibit A. It's a paddle. That's right, awkward. It's a paddle. Okay, so this is mine. So this paddle was actually a joke given to me by my RA staff when I was at Lee University. I accidentally got involved in a sorority my freshman year when I was a student at Lee University. They said it was social service. I showed up, and as a young freshman, found out, oh no, I was rushing. Omega Alpha Phi, a Christian social service sorority, devoted till you die. So, sure, there's a song. You guys really want me to sing this song? Okay, all right. I may squeak. Remember, I have no voice.
You got this.
Omega Alpha Phi, devoted till we die. We walk with pride. I even forgot it.
Start again, don't
Okay.
pick up again.
Omega Alpha Phi, devoted till we die. We walk with pride in jade and gray. Trust in God along the way. Sa-na-na-na-na-na. That's all I remember. Jazzy voice. So I was a part of a sorority, totally by accident. I was also scared first year, so I was like, I'm not gonna tell them I'm not rushing. I don't know what I'm doing. And I was surprised. I didn't think they would ever tap me into the club. They did, much to my surprise. And I think for me, as I was going through my 4 years of college and being a part of Omega Alpha Phi, there were some really great things, great memories. Yeah, we did service. We served. But it was really interesting to me that in many ways for the sorority, it was a legacy that I inherited, and it was a tradition that I inherited. But to be honest, it wasn't very hospitable, and it wasn't very inclusive, because not everybody was invited. Secondly, I don't get the paddling thing. That doesn't feel very hospitable. I didn't really like that when we did rushing, and then when we got involved in the club, the only way that you could really be accepted is if you went through induction. And I remember going through my induction, and one of the things is they would blindfold you and make you feel like you were the worst person. And they would then make you take this test, and of course nobody could pass this test, and then they would say, we're going to burn this test into the fire of God, because that's grace. And I remember thinking, this is the stupidest thing I have ever done, right? But it was interesting. I was a part of that club for 4 years, and I never was able to really make a change, right? It's our tradition. It's our legacy, Shannon. Why wouldn't we want to make people go through the same induction that I went through? And I think that always bothered me at my core, right? Not all traditions and legacy need to stand. Sometimes when we notice that they're not inclusive, that they're not hospitable, that they're actually alienating to people, that they're hurtful, that they may be filled with racism or bias, maybe we should end those traditions and be courageous enough to stand up as leaders and say, yeah, no thanks. So this is not the legacy I hope that Residence Life will build. I hope that we will be courageous when we see legacies that, not just paddle, but legacies that I think are not inclusive and not hospitable. Other legacies. Okay, Kayla's here. Who inherited the key?
Brittany, who's not here.
Brittany, okay. So that's always stayed with me, and I think about traditions and I think about legacy. These are some keys. One of my favorite conversations with my RAs is if we're going to create legacies and traditions that are inclusive, hospitable, what are healthy traditions and an example of that? And when I was preparing this session, this always comes to mind. When I was in Page and I was the RD at that time, my 2C RA created this beautiful key. It's a mantle. So if you lived in Page, especially this year, it should be, Kayla's had it. She inherited it because I brought it back. I resurrected it and gave it back to her. That key has had a poem that was passed down from every RA to RA to RA. And in that key was used to educate all the women of the section based off of the poem, based off of that everyone has opportunity and access to the good gospel of Christ, that all are welcome. And it was just a simple symbol. But it was really powerful to watch how this simple symbol got passed on from RA to RA to RA. I ended up finding the key, and I was like, oh, I'm bringing it back. So last year, I decided that's a legacy that I hope we continue to pass. So I gifted that to Kayla, and Kayla will be gifting that to Brittany. And my hope is that Brittany will pass that on to the next 2C RA. It's inclusive, it's hospitable. It allows us to focus on the live, love, and learn. So when we talk about healthy traditions, I hope this is the symbol that you think about. I hope this is what you start to pray about and think about. What legacy do you want to create? What legacy have you inherited with passing the torch? Maybe what do you need to change? What do you want to advocate to change? These are the conversations that we want to have with you. So with that, I want to invite my panel members. Lima, Ayla, Celissa, come on up. You don't have to talk long, but you can if you want. So I've asked each of the panel members, you guys need chairs? Would you like chairs? You can sit there, yeah. Yeah, you can. You guys want to sit? You want to? Lima. Follow the Lima. I'm taking this away from you though. Just kidding. All right, so I've asked each of the panel members just a couple central questions. I've asked each of the panel members to just offer some reflections as a gift to you guys. What does it mean to be a part of inheriting a tradition? What they feel like maybe they've cultivated and what they hope to leave behind for you guys. So this is a chance just to hear from people, not me. So Lima, kick it off.
Oh, let's me first. Okay, so yesterday was passing the torch for Arlington. I think Paige and Clark also did passing the torch yesterday. So Arlington RAs, you're going to hear it twice, but I think it's good because by the end of the year, I hope you guys memorize what I'm going to say. But so one of, and this is near and dear to my heart, but one of the traditions, the RD before me, Joshua Canada, we actually were. A benefit was that we actually were really good friends from grad school, and so we just kept in touch, and he's actually one of the main reasons why I'm here, because he primed me for Westmont. He's a man of color, and so we really had a lot of similarities in our experiences, especially in Christian higher ed. And he's just like an older brother, and he would always pick on me and call me names. So, you know, because that's what older brothers do, right? But one of the traditions that he passed down to me, that he actually started, was a prayer that I think it's, I don't know where he got it, some prayer, I don't know, Shannon probably knows, but
Common Book of Prayer.
yeah, that one. But I kind of took it, and actually I just coined it called the Armington Blessing. And when he told me about it, he said at the end of every staff meeting, he would pray, and then he would end with this, he would use it as a blessing. And so he did that all 4 years while he was here. And so I decided to take it and incorporate that same practice. And the funny thing is, my first year, I don't know if some of the RDs remember this, but my first year, I don't want to give away too much of like the beginning part of what's going to happen when you guys come back from imprint and you're like showered and everything. But we pray over our staff. I'm just going to say that. And I remember that I said that prayer. And one of a returning staff member, Bethany Day, she actually was in Arlington the year before. And when I said that prayer, she came up to me afterwards and just lost it. Because she said that prayer brought back so much memories. It reminded me of my time with Joshua, it reminded me of my time in Armington, and that just hearing that just brought me back to Armington. And so that really meant a lot to me, and that was something that I was like, okay, we're gonna really do this, because my hope is that whenever my RAs hear that prayer, that they know that at the end of the day they are loved, they are cherished, and that the Lord has them. The Lord is like, got you. And yeah, anytime that a returner Armington RA would hear that prayer, I've had the same reaction of just like, they would just like break down and cry. I remember Mac Ellis, he also did that too. So this year, we had, again, just to name the interruptions and evacuations that we had, the second evacuation, I was like, we need to pray, because we just need to pray. So I decided to end with this prayer. And it really hit deep for us, because there is a line that says, may he guide you through the wilderness, protect you through the storm. And this is right when we finished evacuating for the mudslides. Ooh, I'm like even getting a little teary, emotional thinking about it. And my RAs and I just lost it, because we're like, he protected us through the storm. You know, so little did I realize that even when I was praying this all 3.5 years at this point, that I was asking the Lord to protect us as we serve these students, and he did. And I am just, it just really hit deep for all of us. And so, so I'm just gonna share this Armington prayer, and we like to share it to rest of Res Life as well, because, you know, Armington, it's not just Armington, Armington is also part of Res Life. Yeah, so it says, and I'm not giving this to the new RD, because my current RAs wrote things about why they love me on the back, so I'm going to take that, because that's for me, to be affirmed in that. So anyways, but yeah, so, may the peace of the Lord Christ go with you wherever he may send you. May he guide you through the wilderness, protect you through the storm. May he bring you home rejoicing at the wonders he has shown you. May he bring you home rejoicing once again into our doors. And I was always in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. To be inclusive for those who have different expressions, because I've had some Catholic RAs as well. And so I hope when I tell and hand this off to Tim as well, is just is to say, like, my hope and prayer is that when you say these to your RAs, that they know that they are dearly loved, that the Lord is with them through this process, and that he will protect them and guide them on just how to live and love and learn through that. So.
Thanks, Anna.
Is that okay? Good.
All right, let's go. Take it away.
All right. I don't think you know this, Shannon, so this will be news to you. But my first year, my vision for my section was to see blank. So it's like to see God, to see others.
Oh, that's so cute.
Thanks. And then last year, Shannon passed down the key to me. I was like, now I gotta fit this into my vision. And it felt uncomfortable, right? Because we're not always comfortable with change. And sometimes we aren't always comfortable with being put in this box of tradition. And as beautiful as a gift as it was, I racked my brain the whole summer trying to figure out how I was going to fit this key into my vision. Because it's a gift, right? You know, the legwork's done. Now you just got to put your own flavor on it, as we were talking about earlier. And I couldn't figure it out for the life of me. And I was praying and praying and praying. And finally something came up that was just so natural. And I didn't even realize that it fit the theme of the key until I started talking about it with my residents. And it was to practice appropriate vulnerability. And so thinking of the key as like the key to your heart or the key to your story. And I think that that's something to really practice, especially within a Christian community. And to just kind of oyster up what it means to live in a true community and what it means to have true vulnerability and to share with one another and to live, love, been there too. You stole my line. But yeah, I think that it's really important to remember that tradition is beautiful, and it's a gift. And even though it may feel uncomfortable, that's when you can like sprinkle your own little flavor on it and make it your own. Yeah.
All right. I don't have anything as tangible as like a specific prayer or the key that you have. But I think, like Shannon was saying, one of the biggest traditions of Res Life is being hospitable and inclusive. And I think for me, the way that I've been able to like maintain that tradition, and I think for all of you, a way that you guys can do that is by being yourself. So like when I got hired, I told Rich, I'm like, why did you I don't know why you really hired me, because like I wear like a Justin Bieber mugshot shirt and stuff. I don't know, like it's kind of like I feel like I don't fit the mold of like what an RA is. Like I don't have Christmas lights up in my room, and like I was kind of like I don't know, man. I feel like you chose the wrong person, and I think like each of you are chosen, just like each of us were chosen, because we don't fit a specific mold. Each of us have unique things that we bring. So I think for you guys, I feel like for you guys to live into that and to say like, yeah, I'm not like everyone else, and that's good. Okay.
Okay, is it? We're done. Okay, good job, panel. Good job. Welcome to the tradition of crying. All the emotions. I don't know why.
It's okay, these are happy too.
That's a good word. All right, so that's a little bit of tradition. So hopefully that gives you something to think about. Okay, we're gonna break you guys up into small groups for like 10 minutes. Okay, so RDs, I'd love for you guys to join into some of the small groups, but just ask that you guys listen and just encourage the conversation. We want you guys to kind of spearhead it. Okay. All right, so I'd be curious, in your small groups, what were things that you guys talked about? It'd be good to hear from the different 6 groups. What were things that you guys talked about? What were things that you think were interesting that you feel like the group needs to hear? Alicia, go for it.
It's like the last question we talked about before we just came back, but it was question 5. What might it like to encourage the residents in your section to show hospitality and help you create such an identity within your tradition? And Drew in our group made a really great comment saying that he was talking to a coworker who was an RA at APU, and she said that you can't really force community, and so if they want to come to the community, they can, but if not, then the best way to do that is just say like, hey, I'm here for you, I love you, if you need anything, I'm here. And so I thought that was really nice to hear, because that's a part of it I never really heard, because in my opinion, like in my mind, it's like, okay, you gotta make community, like everyone has to like try and make sure everyone's like cared for, feels like needed, or like it's loved, but if they don't want that, then you can't really, forcing it on is not gonna do any good.
Any other thoughts?
Actually, the same question, we were talking, Belinda said something that was, that I thought was really wise, and that was just a really cool idea, was getting the whole section to, like you said, you have someone that's like on a sports team or a music ensemble or something like that, getting the whole section or people from the section to go to that event, especially because people in those kind of groups tend to already have them as their friend group, or maybe even, I think especially with sports, you spend so much time with your sports team, you don't have time to invest in the section. So it's a way of like inviting them in, or like saying like, hey, we as a community care about you, and the door is open.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I think for both, what you're both sharing, they kind of couple together, because I think we have to be careful in our assumptions. I think sometimes one of the things that I think is a legacy I would like for us to let go of is, first shares. I mean, they totally want to hang out all the time. Not necessarily. it really depends on your section, it really depends on the people. And the same goes for your upperclassmen community. I remember when I moved into Ocean View, everyone was like, oh, they're not gonna do anything. Cool. We're gonna do spring sing and I'm going to win. And we did. Twice in the 4 years that I was there. I'm a little competitive. But, right, it's like, if I had just assumed that that was true, that that's the legacy of Ocean View Apartments, there wouldn't have been really a great opportunity to think through ways that I get to know my section and the needs of the section and the needs of the hall, and what creativity I could employ to be able to support the needs of that hall. I love that, right? Because you may have a lot of athletes, and so what does it look like to rally your section to go to, a soccer game, a women's soccer game, or to go to a baseball game, right? To show support and to bring the section in that. You also may have people that are involved in theater, and so even if it's, and when I was in Ocean View, we went to every single theater performance we could go to. Even if our students weren't in my like hanging out in my apartment or going to any event, it was like, that's the service part of being an RA. Okay, I'm not expecting you to come to my room, but I will come to your event and I'll offer support and I'll write you a note and just say, well done. That was awesome. I'm so glad I could support you. So I think those are really good points of how you can connect with a wide variety. ICP, I would love to see us say, yeah, I'm going to show up to this event and I'm going to try to rally as many people as I can to participate and be a part of those conversations. And so I think those are really creative. Sarah's giving me that smile like, I got you, girl, ICP. But I mean, it's part of that, right? It's bringing all the different types of lived experiences in your hall and saying that those are important. And so being strategic to kind of be hospitable to all of those experiences. I love that. I think it's a really good advice. Other thoughts? Other things you guys talked about?
This is something we talked about, but in thinking about traditions that maybe aren't helpful, I would love to see the tradition that extroverts live in Page and introverts live in Clark die forever. Because it's not true. And I think we talk about that a lot and it keeps perpetuating something that's actually not an accurate definition of introversion and extroversion anyway. But I think even the way that we talk about those spaces and value them all and value Emerson equally on Upper Campus is going to be a really important thing in continuing to promote mixed class halls.
And to be aware maybe how we subtly promote that too. Because sometimes it's not just like we say that, but there's just like subtle ways that we communicate messages, whether that's in our flyers, in our videos. Like sometimes thinking through like what are the subtle messages that I'm communicating about this community or this space. That's a really good point. Yeah. Any other thoughts? You will learn to talk. Come on, other thoughts? What else did you guys talk about?
We were talking about this same question, number 5. We were talking about keeping doors open and how that's like encourages people to just get to know each other. But Dan was saying that just naming that to your section and saying like, hey, people, if you keep your doors open, we get to know each other. It just reminds people and actually makes a difference. So something that may seem obvious, saying it out loud can make a difference.
Yeah. And encouraging that in Emerson Hall, right? I'd love for you to like keep your door open. We can't require it. It's a bit unique because of the doors. So by law, we can't say you have to keep your door open because of the way the building's built. GLC could be in the same way as well in terms of just the way that the building's structured. So how do you then promote that in a way that, for those spaces, intentionally trying to foster community, but then in other places where we do have our open hours policies, promoting it not as like this rule. Like sometimes I think what happens is it's like, yes, we have responsibility to enforce policy, don't get me wrong, but even like how do we communicate that when we do? And in the communication, again, what are the traditions of residence life that we're passing on that we're police? That's not our role. That's not the live, love, learn. I think that that's not on there, law enforcement. Police, we will find you. So like checking even our own attitudes and hearts about the things that we promote, I think is really helpful. Yeah. Any other thoughts? Perfect.
So one of the things that I brought up with number 5 was the idea of kind of finding this medium of everybody needs to be able to learn how to serve and learn how to get out of the bubble and go into town and help those around us, especially after disaster like this. And so kind of just like from the get-go, kind of figuring out how can we as a hall learn to serve effectively in the community and be involved in the community. So.
Yeah. Yeah. And what are ways, again, that you subtly promote that? I was explaining to the group outside, thinking through, you know, what does it look like to have invited former Pagesters to come back to serve the community, right? Because I think a lot of times what I hear from Westmont is, and I hear it in interviews and I hear it in conversations, it's about what you can get. I'm going to receive. I want to do this leadership position, or I'm going to do this because it's going to benefit my resume, or it's going to do this for me, or it's that. Like, and I sometimes listen to that and I think, ooh, we've got some education to do, right? As we live in community, not only should we as residents be receiving, we should also be giving. It's symbiotic, right? So there's a disconnect happening in our community where somehow that's getting lost in the conversation of, I'm not just somebody that gets to sit in these chairs and receive from the master Shannon Ballroom. You know, like, and my encouragement to you especially would be me and the RDs, when we do training, when we do class, I can do miracles probably, right? And the truth is it doesn't matter if you guys are not engaged. It doesn't matter if you're not contributing into the conversation of learning, right? So that's one example. Then let's take it to our hall. Like, if we, in our traditions and legacy, sometimes what happens as servants, right, it's we give. Sometimes part of that legacy and tradition is stepping back and thinking through, what are ways that I can begin to promote that we're not just giving, but we're also, that we're not just receiving, that we too have a responsibility to give. And that's not just on the RA, and it's not just on the RD, and it's not just on the community life councils. That's part of our work, is to try to promote that in our residence halls. Not always easy. I mean, it's really not. Like, walking through the hall and you see all the trash. I mean, let alone think about the kitchens. To me, that's the most concrete example of what I'm talking about. And I love it. I'm like, wow, people just leave their dirty dishes. And there's some sort of disconnect here. We can go to Potter's Clay and we can serve Ensenada. And then we expect the custodial staff, who I mind you is the most diverse group of individuals on this campus, to clean our dishes. Because we can't do it ourselves. Because this place is for me. That is a disconnect. That is a disconnect. Somebody needs to ask me to come speak in chapel, because I gotta work about the kitchens up in this place. But that's what we're trying to kind of get at in spring training. Those are the things we need to think through. Because it does require thought and reflection and intentional conversations. And the truth is, it's not just you. You have a team. You have amazing RDs. You have an excellent assistant director. You have resources available to you who can continue to talk about these things with you and say, yeah, how do we create inclusive and hospitable community in a way that allows us to live, love, and learn? So keep these questions. Think about them throughout the summer. Write down ideas. Have conversations with mentors. Take the time that you need, because the legacy and tradition we're leaving with you is that's what we communicated to last year's RAs. How do we create hospitable and inclusive community? We're going to ask you guys to do the same, and next year they're going to get the same thing again. And I hope that every year, slowly but surely, we begin to see some culture shifts happen on this campus and residents' life. And you guys play a role in that. Me and the RDs, the one spec. You guys really are our hands and feet. So that's our first part of our training. So everybody take a moment. Stand up. Take a stretch. Feel free to dance if you want. Have a moment. Because now we're going to talk about imprints. Talking about tradition. Thank you guys.
All right, well, we are going to talk about imprint because that's our very first thing that we get to do when we come back. And it's and just up front, it's okay if this is not the most thrilling thing for you in the world. Okay? Some people, all about imprint, love it, love it, love it. Other people survive. And they do it, they get through it, and they're glad that they don't have to do it again. So, that's okay. But there's some really important learning that happens on imprint. So, we're going to jump into a little bit of an overview. So, why imprint? Why do we do this? It costs a lot of money, it takes a lot of time, it's a lot of work to prepare for, and it's uncomfortable. So why do we do it? Well, there's some good reasons. So, we want you to grow as leaders. The wilderness is a good place to do that. There, we'll talk a little bit more about leadership development, specifically in terms of a role on imprint, but growing in your capacity as a leader is going to happen on imprint.
Can I interrupt you?
Yep.
Really quick? If you're not already, there's a whole section in your notebook about imprint.
Yeah, use that notebook.
We're following right through that, so I would encourage you to take some notes, write down questions you have, because we'll have time for questions at the end, but then you can follow right along with what we're doing. Sorry to interrupt.
No, that's great. So the tab labeled imprint is a good place to start. Self-confidence. Getting through imprint is an accomplishment. Making it to the top of a mountain is an accomplishment. Jumping into a freezing cold lake is an accomplishment. It's something to be proud of. You'll grow in self-confidence. And you can't really do imprint just by yourself. I mean, you could go backpacking by yourself, but in terms of what we're doing intentionally on imprint, it's a community thing. And part of the goal is that you're going to grow not as somebody who is just focused on what you can get out of it, like what Shannon was talking about, but what you can contribute to the group. In fact, the group needs you to contribute to it, or it's not going to work. So that's an overview of it. So challenge by choice. It's one of the foundational concepts of outdoor experience, outdoor education. And what this means is that everybody has different places where they're going to be challenged. You right now may be thinking, imprint, you know what, pooping in the woods, that is going to be my challenge. And maybe it will be, but maybe you'll actually find that, like, this is awesome, and I don't ever want to go back to the stall. Maybe that's not going to be your challenge. But maybe that other person on your team who drives you crazy, that's going to be your challenge, because you're going to be sleeping next to them in a sleeping bag. Who knows where your challenge is going to come from? But everybody is challenged differently, but we want you to choose your challenge and engage. So one way to talk about it is that we all have a comfort zone. We have a place that is kind of our normal capacity, normal way of living. And then we have experiences that are stretching, places where we really feel like we have been pushed and we're growing, but get pushed a little bit too far and you get to the panic zone. So what we want is stretch zone. We want you to intentionally choose to say, what is it going to take for me to move past where I'm comfortable to really challenge myself to grow? But also then saying like, hey group, I am reaching my panic zone right now and I need you to support me. That's super, super important. We'll talk about that when we come back in August. But being able to be self-aware enough to know where your comfort, where your stretch, and where your panic zones are, and being able to verbalize those things is going to be a really important part of imprint. And will actually be a really important part of the year, because you'll have situations in your sections that may take you to your panic zone, and you need to be willing to admit that to your team and to your RD. So, challenge by choice. So why go to the wilderness? Why go to the wilderness? Why not stay here on campus and do something? Why not go to the beach and do something? So there's a couple reasons. So in the wilderness, there's something about being surrounded by enormous mountains, by really beautiful views, that it moves us towards God. When we are surrounded by creation, we often find that we're more open to hearing from God. We're also directed toward our group. So this is again, that point of learning interdependence, of saying, I'm not in this by myself, I have a group who's here to support me, and I actually need them. And then finally, we're directed inside ourselves. There's something about the challenge of the wilderness, about some of the space and solitude of the wilderness, that allows us some of that internal processing place for us to really dig in and say, who am I? What am I about? Where do I want to grow? So the wilderness does that primarily because there's not a lot of distractions. There's not a lot of distractions in the wilderness. So, and what is there to distract us is often very straightforward. It's things like, where am I going to set up a place to sleep? How am I going to eat today? How do I help care for someone in my group who maybe sprained their ankle? Like, what does it look like to surround someone? But the tasks are very straightforward and very tangible. And there's something that's kind of freeing about that from some of the ways that we exist normally. So there's some goals of Imprint. Some things that we are hoping happens. So we want to be upfront about that, and it's not actually these three things.
But those are good goals.
They're great goals. Great goals. And if those happen, you're awesome. But first thing, spiritual formation. So we really want to utilize the beauty of the wilderness to just recover a sense of wonder and awe, gratitude, things like that draw us to God and help us to be thankful. We want you to have an experience in beginning this RA time that is not just busy, flurried, jumping from one thing to another, lots of tasks to complete. If we stayed on campus, there would be distractions. Things like, is my section ready? Are all my door tags up? I have tasks that I need to accomplish. When you're off in the Sierras, you have to survive. Like, you're just there. You don't have these other tasks to do besides what's a part of that experience. And I think that also opens us up to God. And then also, there's just a sense to use this as a time to reflect and to really think through what you want your RA year to be about. So, I heard Richard Foster, who, if you know his name, he wrote The Celebration of Discipline. He talks a lot about spiritual disciplines. I heard him speak once, and someone asked the question, what is the biggest challenge facing this current generation in terms of spiritual formation? And it was really interesting because without really having to think about it, he just said, distraction. This is the most distracted generation the world has ever known. I don't know if that's actually true in terms of a statement, but I think there's a lot of truth in it, at least in that sense that it's very hard to listen to God when you're constantly distracted and you're constantly being pulled in a lot of different directions. Technology does that to us, but also our interactive environment does that. Being in a residence hall can do that because there's just a lot going on. And so we hope that this Imprint experience is a place where you get a taste of living without distractions for a little bit. Interpersonal leadership development. So we want you to grow as leaders, and we want you to grow as leaders in a place where you can be stretched. The wilderness is not necessarily the safest place because, there's mountains that are tall, there's rocks that you can fall on. There's things that can go wrong, but it's also a container that, because of our group, because you have guides, because you have medics on the trip, because you have res life staff on the trip, there are experienced people around that can help you move into this place that's stretching to you and grow as a leader because the environment itself can be really stimulating for that leadership. And finally, physical development. So we want you to end Imprint impressed with what you can do. And part of that is, as a division, as a student life division, one of our areas of growth is we want people to grow in their physical and emotional health. And one of the things that's kind of neat about the wilderness is there's not a lot of image management when you're really dirty and you're really sweaty and you haven't showered and you're covered in bug bites. You just sort of let go of some of the things that often control how we interact with each other in terms of managing our image. And there's a physical development where you can be proud of what you can accomplish. That's not about how you look in comparison to something, but it's about being proud about what your body can actually do. And so that's just kind of a neat place for us to grow, and hopefully that you can take that into some of the year in terms of pursuing health just physically as well. So I'll hand it over to Liz.
All right, So we're gonna talk about some of the key elements. See what Dan did right there? Elements, yep. Yeah, if you didn't catch it yet, keep trying and you'll figure out why it's funny. What? Oh, there's an element, like the periodic table. Oh my gosh, amazing. Okay, so imprint has a lot of different elements. There's things that make it challenging, there's things that make it exciting, there's things that make it exhausting. So some big picture parts are, you may be wondering, where do we actually go on imprint? Are we talking about like right behind campus? Is this where we're hiking? No, we actually are gonna drive all the way up to Sequoia National Park to where Mineral King is, and that's where we start our hiking. And so we're gonna be driving away from campus all together in a whole bunch of vans, but we're actually gonna be physically removed in an area where no matter how cool you are, you will have no cell phone service. So you can bring your phone, but really why? No point. Okay, so some of the key things that you're gonna get to experience on imprint are learning wilderness skills. Some of you, this is your sweet spot. You maybe like me have spent years of your professional career working and living at a camp, and you're like, this is what I do. I build ropes courses for fun. Some of you may be like, I've literally never taken a pee outside and this is a little bit terrifying. And that's okay, because we're gonna work with all levels, and so our hope is that there are things that you will find that will challenge you, and then there's also strengths you can bring that you can help and encourage the other people who are part of your group. So something fun about imprint, and you may not know this yet, is that imprint is not a trip that you go on with just the RAs on your staff. We're actually intentionally mixed into 4 different groups, so you'll be with somebody else from your staff, but you're also gonna have the opportunity to get to know people who are not part of your same RA staff. That's intentional because it's not just about you and your little kingdom of your residence hall, it's about being a part of residence life as a whole. So, can you go back to your second? I wanna highlight some of the funny things here because they're really important aspects of the wilderness. One, finding that sweet, sweet patch of mountain Charmin. You can imagine what we're talking about here. Because you know what? You pack it in, you pack it out. So nature's Charmin becomes your best friend in the realm of toilet paper, should you be somebody who's into that kind of thing. Leaving no trace, all good things. You can see the person with the little walking stick right here. The lean, these are all cool aspects of hiking. So you'll get to experience some different skills, learning how to cook over a stove, things that maybe you haven't done before. Okay, on to the next one. One really important aspect of imprint is that everyone will have the opportunity to have a solo. So this is something that everyone will do individually overnight with the goal of having time intentionally by yourself where it's quiet, experiencing what it's like to fast and to be alone. For some people, this is the highlight of their time. For some, this is a kind of fearful thing, to be by yourself. But one of the reasons that we really value the wilderness and we really value the solo is it's very reminiscent of a lot of what we read in Scripture about God meeting people in the wilderness and God meeting people in times that feel barren and feel alone. And so in the solo, it's an opportunity to be you and God in your journal and to really be able to reflect. You actually will spend a whole night by yourself. You'll also experience cold and hunger potentially if it's cold like it has been in recent years. Which is kind of a gift, and I think most of us live our lives at a really frenetic pace, and as you think about your upcoming summer, my guess is most of you have not built in a full week of personal solitude and reflection, and so this is a chance for you to actually stop and say, well, what has even happened over the past year? What do I want to be about? God, what are you teaching me? And that's why we make a point of doing this, because we think it is such an important aspect of your own personal growth and development. So solo. Leader of the day. How many of you recognize this handsome young man? Yes, Trey Rutherford. Yeah, one of my former RAs. This is an example of when Trey was being the leader of the day on imprint. So let's talk about leader of the day. Gosh, that sounds kind of intimidating. He's wearing a whistle. He's holding a map. He is a leader. But all of you will have the opportunity over the course of imprint to not just be a follower who's not paying attention to what's going on, but to actually be given the map, and with another partner, you're the ones who are actually going to lead the group for the day. You're going to be making decisions about, wow, what time do we wake up? Who's going to help prepare the food? How do we get where we're going? What place do we think the trail is actually going? Those are things that you'll get to take leadership and ownership for over your peers. And for some people, this may be something you're like, again, I thrive here. For others, that might feel really intimidating. But our goal is that you have the opportunity to be challenged and to push yourself in that way. So you can read, there's a little bit more in there about whether that'll be a full day or a half day, and that depends on the size of your group. There's also something that I want to highlight here. Everyone gets to go on imprint. Disclaimer, everyone denotes each RA, or at least a sweep pick of each RA. Every year there's a few RAs who for some reason aren't able to participate in imprint. And when that's the case, we actually print this really sweet picture of them, and they go and do everything on imprint with us. They're on somebody's pack, they eat meals with us, we talk about them. And part of that is because we want to remember that they're a part of residents' life, even if they're not physically with us, they're going to be having their own imprint experience someplace else. And so that's why I just want to highlight this. If you know there may be some of you who aren't able to go for some reason, or you may have a medical reason, or something that happens this summer that keeps you from being able to do that, you will still be with us and celebrated in the wilderness, even if you are not there in the flesh with us. And then I was also going to highlight a few things before we talk about feet, but this all goes together. So if you have not been in altitude before, high altitude, it can do interesting things to your body. So being mindful that when you're at higher elevation, it's really important to hydrate, to wear sunscreen. There's a little something that we affectionately call the altitudes, because sometimes your internal systems don't catch up to the altitude change as quickly as your exterior. So there's just realities of you're going to be at a place where you're actually hiking at a higher elevation than we're normally used to at sea level. Students and RAs will often ask, hey, do I need to train physically for imprint so I'm ready? Well, the answer is no. But if you haven't even gone for a walk all summer, or you've not hydrated at all, it will be more challenging for you. If you make a point of having some time of being active, of walking, I'm a big fan of hydrating. I believe hydration is happiness. And so if I were you going on imprint, for about a week before I started on imprint, I would make a point of drinking a lot of water every day to get my body ready, because it's going to be easier for you if you stay well hydrated. So that's just, word to the wise. You can ask me more about that later. Okay, the most important thing to take care of when you're on imprint is your feet. It may not sound like a big deal as we sit in this classroom right now, but getting a hot spot, getting a blister will literally ruin your experience. So I just want to highlight some things that are here that are going to be helpful for you. So off to the left, look, someone broke in his shoes before imprint. Well done that person. If you're like, I'm going to buy awesome hiking boots and I'm never going to wear them, or I'm going to break them in on the van ride up there, you have not actually broken them in. You're probably going to get blisters. So you can hike wearing hiking boots, you can hike wearing, I grew up calling them sneakers, but people here make fun of me for that, tennis shoes, or whatever people call them here. What do you call them? Athletic shoes? What?
Running shoes?
Running shoes, okay. So whatever works for you, you can hike in boots. You will know for yourself what's the most comfortable. I'm somebody who rolls my ankle pretty regularly, so I need to wear hiking boots, otherwise I would spend the whole time with twisted ankles. But if you get new shoes before imprint, please do yourself a favor and actually break them in. That means walk in them, run in them, kick some different things with them to make sure that, this sounds silly, but you actually should kick a tire on your car. If you do that, you will know, it will simulate what your feet will feel like when you are walking up and down hill and your body weight is going against it. So if you kick a tire and you're like, wow, I feel like my foot is smashing against the front of my boot, it will feel like that every time you're walking downhill. So just words to the wise. Oh, is that a blister? That's real bad. So if you're getting a blister, you need to let your medic know immediately, even if you just feel what we call a hot spot, which is there's a little bit of your skin is feeling warm because it's getting rubbed. If you can intervene before it gets to blister level, you will have happy feet. And your medic would love to be near your smelly feet and put mole foam on them for you. So that's important. Okay, up here, cute chacos. Those are great chacos. The double strap, the toe strap, that's so great. Great for at the campsite, not okay for hiking. So students will often ask, hey, can I hike in chacos? I do it all the time. That's so great that you do it all the time. On imprint, you need to actually wear a secure closed-toed shoe. And then also just to highlight, look at this duo dry sock down here. Those are nice socks. So figuring out for you, hey, are you a person who likes to wear athletic socks? Are you a wool socks fan? Do you like to do the wool socks with the liners so that the rubbing happens between your two pairs of socks instead of between your foot and your sock? That's how I roll because I don't like getting blisters. So there's a whole bunch of information. There's a whole page in the notebook literally just about your feet. So I just want to draw your attention to it as you plan this summer. Very important. Okay. Yeah. So I would love to invite up Miss D. Kim as our walking model, and we're going to talk a little bit about some of the gear basics just to give you an idea of some important things. She came prepared in the flesh. Go D. Go. All right. And Rachel too. Okay. So, yeah, D. We're going to turn over and let Rachel and Dee talk a little bit about the gear, and then we'll have some time for you who have questions.
How you guys feeling?
Good.
Is anyone like nervous? That's okay. I'm scared. Sometimes. We just figured it's helpful for you guys to actually visually see some of the things that, I mean, it's in our binder for you guys to have like the packing list, so stick to that, but just so that you guys can see some of the different elements of things that would be used in your trip. So, extra things too. All right, so for the day, D, also, we have backpacks for you guys, so some of you guys are like, I don't have a backpack, that will be provided for you.
And they look just like this, the Duder brand.
Yes, I think the men's.
The men's are also
They're just
Duder
different
with our
colors.
blue.
Yes. And they're new from last year, so they're not as stinky.
Yeah.
Stinky as
This
the
Flash, guys, it's really good because if you saw the pictures from before, the other ones are external packs, and those are the worst. They're really heavy, they can easily break, and these are just so much nicer and more comfy. So it's kind of a good thing.
D, do you have a sleeping bag?
Yeah.
So that's another thing that we will provide for you. And some of you may be wondering, if I have a pack, I have a sleeping bag, can I bring my own things? But we just keep everything like uniform, and then we also know like what the packs are. You guys don't have to worry about that. So if you have your own, awesome, you can take that on other trips. But for imprint, we'll use the Westmont here.
So this is my own sleeping bag, but you guys will also get this where it will pack small like this. So you just take it out, and all the sleeping bags will be able to keep you warm at night. And this is going to sound counterintuitive, and you'll figure it out later when you're up there. But when you go into bed at night, you're going to be like, I'm so cold, I want to wear all my layers. Like the best thing for you is to like go down into something like this or lighter layers, because then there's more air circulation for you to get warm. And if at all you have to pee in the middle of the night, you need to go like then, because you will also lose your like warmth because you're trying to keep like the pee in. So just keep that in mind. But here's a sleeping bag.
Pro tips.
Yes, you guys will also get liners, like Westmont liners, but just so that you guys see. This is an example.
Ooh.
Put your own potato sack to go into the sleeping bag. Yeah. But it's a lot more comfortable than burlap. Character building, you know? And then I guess we can talk about just the general layers of clothes from like the day to the evening.
Yeah.
So Dee's probably wearing like what you would hike with. So
Yeah.
she has her hiking shoes that she has broken in prior to us leaving for imprints. So good job, Dee.
Woo, yeah.
So no blisters for D. Shorts with yes. Which depending on, we highly recommend, especially if you tend to chafe. That is a real thing, but you don't have to. I think just whatever will be comfortable athletic wear. So some end up doing the shorts, others do leggings, whatever you guys feel more comfortable with.
And I would also say, like for the ladies, at night when you get into your campsite, you're going to want to change into like longer pants or whatever. If you have spandex on, it's a lot easier for you to just take your shorts off as opposed to finding a bush to hide behind. So it's like a helpful tip.
You can also find a bush to tie behind.
Yeah, if you want to.
And then, yeah, just like an athletic top, which there's certain materials, so cotton in general, it tends to you're gonna sweat, we're all gonna sweat, and it tends to not dry quickly, and it also holds moisture. People have worn cotton t-shirts, that's totally fine, but things that are more like quick dry, or I think even polyester are better materials, as well as wool. When you're hiking during the day, it's good to also have a ball cap or something to block out sun, especially those of you who may get like sunburn a lot more easily or quickly.
It's from Target, it was $2.
And then we will provide for you guys sunblock, bug spray. You don't have to worry about that.
And hand sanitizer.
And hand sanitizer. Some people will layer, because sometimes when you're changing altitudes or going from one elevation to the next, it can get a little bit chillier. So things that are easily layerable. And then Dee's gonna start getting prepped for, typically when we get to the locations, it gets colder at night. So usually people, I mean, you may go out in the lake, and so bring your swimwear. Or you could also, if you have like quick dry stuff, you could just jump in the lake with that. I was gonna say ocean. You will not be seeing oceans if you are. But then once we're there at the campsite, you'll more likely start layering up. So you get it quick and easy. Yeah, longer pants. Sometimes people will bring an extra pair of wool socks again, flannels, or like a fleece or a hoodie of some sort. Fleece is a pretty good material too because it's lighter weight, but also keeps warm.
And don't feel like you need to buy the name brand things. I have been going backpacking for 4 years, so I've like slowly accrued this stuff. But I went to Marshall's and I got, you know, those, they kind of look like North Face puffy jackets, but they're really thin. I got that for like $15 at Marshall's, and it works just fine. I bring it every single year. So, like I said, don't feel like you have to go all out and go to REI and get like all the brand new stuff.
So during the day you may wear your like hat or visor for the sun, but you may want like a beanie or something to like keep your head warm, which if you're cold, having some on the top of your head and the bottom of your feet will keep actually the heat closer to your body, I guess. Thankfully in my 4 years it has not rained during imprint.
But it rains a lot this
You
year.
never
Rain in
know, so
mine.
if you have a lightweight jacket, it has for some others in
And
this
I'm
room.
stronger for it.
So you could also do like a poncho, or if you have a rain jacket that's lightweight. It also helps actually if it's like windier out, then it can serve as a multi-layer purpose.
And I would just say, the first time I went backpacking, they were like, you want a poncho, but it hasn't rained in years, you'll be fine. And that year we went, there was like insane thunderstorms. All of our sleeping bags were soaked. It was already 7 p.m. and we were huddled under one tiny thing that we had put up. And so I'm just gonna tell you now, you don't have to buy a rain jacket, but please get yourself a poncho because you will be cold and so wet if you don't do that. So.
And it's required.
And it's required, so you have to.
Meaning when we actually will go through all the things that you will be packing with our trained professional guides, ensuring that you have all the necessities. So that list, if you look at it, says very clearly what we're expecting you to bring. And it's not just so that you look fashionably amazing, because we want to ensure that you guys are set up well and safely for the trip.
So Dee's going to talk a little bit more like about some other accessories you're at the camp location.
So at night, as you might have seen from this picture, you will want to bring comfy shoes, or if you don't want to, you can just bring your hiking shoes and then like untie them so that they're looser. But I always wear these Crocs, and I just will use them with my socks. And I personally like it when I have some extra.
I was just saying your feet are smaller than mine.
Tiny Crocs. Sorry for the kids section. But I like it when I can like fit my socks underneath here, because sometimes when you're just wearing chakras or something, like at night it does get really cold and we will not have a campfire. So just know, like, whatever you do, that you'll want to wear socks with whatever you're wearing. Also, something that you guys will all be given a ton of zip bags, so you'll make like your poop bag and everything. And that doesn't mean, for those of you that don't know what that is, you're not packing out your poop, but anytime you like use, like if you bring baby wipes, or maybe you're on your period and you have tampons, like all of that has to be packed back out with you. Leave no trace. So anyways, this is just a regular bag, but you're only supposed to bring 2 like clothing items to change into. And so maybe you'll wear this for like the first couple days, and then you'll wear a different outfit the next couple days. Or if you want to switch back and forth, you can do that. But I always find it really helpful, for me at least, when I put them in Ziploc bags, because if it does rain, at least they'll stay dry. And when I used to go on backpacking trips, I would do a non-scented dryer sheet in with it, because you take it out and it smells like you just took your clothes out of the laundry, and it's great. So if you want to do that, there's a tip for you.
Psychologically, it feels like that.
Yeah. Very true. Also, you'll have times where you can go swimming, so you can bring your swimming suit. And just so you know, for ladies, you do not, if you don't want to, you don't have to wear one piece. You can wear two piece, as long as it's not like super inappropriate. So, 2018. And then we would love if you could bring a small journal and a small Bible, because we will look through it, but also just when you're on solo time, it's really, really helpful. And I personally, you don't have to do this, but I have a mosquito net, because last year mosquitoes were really bad. So I just put this over my head with the hat. Sometimes I'll sleep with it. It's very helpful. You have one too?
It's essential for.
Yeah, it doesn't look good,
If you
but
get
it's
eaten
helpful.
alive by mosquitoes,
Yeah, truly. You have sweet blood.
Sweet blood.
Also, we do provide journals. You'll get an imprint journal, so you don't actually have to bring one. I mean, if you have like your very special journal that gets you in the mood for journaling, then fine. But you do get one as part of the gear that we provide.
oh, yes. We also, there's a list for some of the like mealtime items, so you can get these things from REI, and some of them aren't very expensive either. But you could also just, if you have like a mug, like a cup or something, you can bring that. Just
Not less.
remember that you're going to have to like rinse these things out and use them multiple days in a row. So like, I think one time an RA brought like a paper bowl. I mean, it worked, but by the end it got pretty grody. So, I mean, whatever you guys are comfortable with. But you also don't have to spend tons of money to get these supplies either.
These come in packs at REF, like maybe 3 or 4. Yeah, and you can.
I have the same one and it was the single, but maybe they come
Oh.
back.
Once upon a time, I got these in a couple packs, which was helpful for me because I ended up bringing 3 of these. Because every time I went, we don't have this here, but when I went backpacking, I brought Nutella. And when I was going through my Nutella, I broke my spoon in half. I went too hard. So
Transitioning Nalgene, we will give you guys 2 Nalgene bottles, so you don't have to worry about bringing that either. And then something for those who wear eyeglasses or contacts. If you wear contacts, bring an extra pair, as well as your eyeglasses, because sometimes you may get something in your eye or the contact may rip. I am almost legally blind. If I don't have my eyewear, yes, it's not good. So make sure you bring extra sets. As well as for medication, you'll bring enough for like basically doubling the amount that you would need for those days, and part of that is you'll keep half of it, and the second that you bring, or the second grouping, would be with your medic, so that if anything were to happen, make sure you have the medication.
I also am very blind and wear contacts, so I'm just gonna my own experience. You know, you should have like clean hands when you put your contacts in. Everyone knows that. If you do put hand sanitizer on your hand, please just wait just a little bit before you put your contacts in your eyes. It stinks so bad, but also necessary because you don't want dirt in your eyeballs. So noted. Also, I'm wearing a fanny pack, and I always wear a fanny pack, but this is not a requirement. The reason I bring it is because I will put I have asthma, so I'll have an inhaler, or this is very important. You really, really want a headlamp or some sort of lighting, because it does get dark at night. And chapstick. But anyways, I keep this because once we get to the campsite, I like to be able to walk around without having to go back to my backpack for essential things.
I feel like you guys are, a lot of this is also, there's a lot of good information there. You'll see the things that we do provide. If you have questions, you can ask. Last thing for ladies.
This is just something for the ladies. So if you're a guy, please do not take one. You can, but I don't have enough for you. So on here is just imprint tips for female RAs. It's on front and back side. Just because as a female, there are certain things that happen in the wilderness that guys don't have to go through. So if you're wondering about your period situation, clothing options, hair essentials, sanitation. It's all listed in here. So if you have questions, feel free to ask your RD about them. But hopefully it's clear for you.
Thanks so much, Dee. Thank you, Rachel and Dee.
All right, so Liz and I will take any questions anyone has. And
We've got time for just a few questions, but we also want to respect your time.
anything that you are wondering that we can help with.
Yes, Drew.
What did you say the starting point was?
Where do we start?
Yeah.
It's at Mineral King in Lake Sequoia. Yep.
You guys are supplying all the food, correct?
Yes. Glad that you asked that. We will supply all of the food, and Dan will also know if anybody has any specific dietary restrictions, and we will accommodate for that as well. So if you're like, oh, I'm gluten intolerant, I'm dairy-free, I'm vegetarian, that will all be planned out ahead of time. Yep, great question. And we ask you not to bring your own food, because food attracts animals, so we'll take care of that for you.
Depending on your dietary needs, it's very important that based off of that summer info sheet and in your medical forms, that over the summer, for those who may have pretty severe gluten intolerance, or maybe there's certain needs, Dan will be contacting you this summer to try to ensure that we coordinate our food and meals so that we can ensure that you have a great meal and experience. So if you're nervous about that, that's always on our radar. We have several staff and RAs in the past that have had some of those unique sort of food needs, and so we have the means and the tools to be able to support your kids.
And just as a addendum to that, it's very disruptive if we show up for the packing up, once you get here and you're like, oh, and by the way, like I can't have gluten or dairy, and like we need to know that ahead of time. Okay, so if suddenly over the summer you are developing some sort of intolerance or allergy to something, let me know right away. So because we'll be planning the food out, and your team will be assigned, and the food will already be assigned to that team, and so if you're throwing a wrench in the plans last minute, that gets pretty disruptive. So just stay on top of that.
I would also add with that, if you have any changes in your medical history, or you have a surgery or an injury, or you get a concussion, or anything that you're even like, oh, this was unanticipated, please let Dan know. There are things that may change from the medical form that you filled out until imprint, and it's so helpful if we can know that in advance, rather than again gearing up and you're like, I just got a massive concussion like 4 days ago. I don't think I'm supposed to hike at altitude, which can happen. The more that you share the information, the better prepared we are to support you and come up with a good plan for you as well. Other questions? And this isn't your only time to ask questions. You will have more opportunities. Yeah.
How long is it?
That's great. So 3 nights actually on the trail. It'll be a total of 5 days though that we're in the Mineral King area. So we have a day of driving, we get there, set up camp, we have a night, and that's it's at a high elevation. It's just the campground that's that we drive up to. And so hopefully that allows your body to start acclimating. The next day we leave early in the morning, we hike and on the 4th day we come back and are at a campsite again. So that's what's a total of 5 days.
All right.
Oh, and I don't think we said specifically, Liz referenced the no campfires. Some people, their idea of camping is like this, we're roasting hot dogs over a fire or something. We only have stoves. One of the things that was mentioned was the leave no trace principle. So we do as minimal impact on the environment as possible. So that means we're not having a fire to huddle around at night. Also, we don't bring tents. So that may surprise some people. We really you're just on a tarp with your sleeping bag. So and then we can set up a rain tarp if it's raining. But yeah, but just so you know.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Liz. Logistics, and then we're gonna let you guys go be free. Happy weekend. First thing is that in imprint, every imprint group is going to have an RD. It will have a trained medical guide, and it will have a professional guide. So for some of you who may be feeling nervous, the trip itself is designed to ensure that there are professionals present with every group to ensure that you are safe, to ensure that we have rewarding, and I think transformative experience. For some of you, you may be incredibly nervous about imprint. You may be like, this is hell on earth, okay? Some of you are like, amen. Okay, some of you may be like, I cannot even wait. I am like dying to get on imprint. Let me climb the fiercest mountain, all right? I would recommend, if you're feeling really nervous, to feel free to talk to your RD. I would also recommend feel free to reach out to Melissa Lima. She'll tell you right now, not her favorite experience, but she does it. But she believes in the experience.
It's such a valuable experience, and when I dislike it very strongly.
Yeah, and the year that she didn't attend, she said, I have a great regret, because it's that powerful of experience for us journeying in the wilderness. So if you're feeling nervous, you can talk to Lima. You know what? I didn't even know I was backpacking when I showed up as the RDA page. Surprise! And I didn't have a great first year, if I was really honest. I had never backpacked. I was definitely out of shape. I had just finished a master's degree, and I was like, what? Oh my God. But you know what? I did it. I did it, and I learned a lot. And I learned about relying on others. And there was some humility in that, because I'm the RD, and I'm supposed to have all my crap together in front of all these new students. But it was such a good principle for me to realize, yeah, I'm struggling up this mountain. While others may be not struggling, but they're gonna have their own unique challenges. And maybe that's being patient for somebody like me who may hike a little slower. Each of us are gonna have our unique challenge and imprint. It's just different, and so all those stories are welcome, so it's okay if you feel nervous. Finally, please be prepared. On August 8th, that Wednesday, you're gonna move into your residence hall, and at 2 o'clock when we meet, the very first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna pack up your backpack. So it's important that you know that when we meet in the Page and PR on August 8th at 2 p.m., that you're coming and you're bringing your bag of items so that we can ensure that your backpack is properly fitted and packed for you. So it's incredibly important to make note of that, okay? With that being said, I pray that your weekend is filled with joy, laughter, and only a little bit of mischief, okay? So go in the name of your Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Blessing, grace.
At us?
He's like staring at us.
Yeah.